All right, I am thrilled to welcome on one of my best friends in the biz in life, Tom Silverstein, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, PackersNews.com. We worked together for 4.5 years, I want to say, Tom, and it was
Is
just
that
an
all?
honor.
Man,
Right,
seemed a
right.
lot longer than that.
Was it that bad? Was it
Yeah,
that
it was
bad working
great.
alongside me there?
No, it was great. I miss having you over there, but I read all your stuff and I'm a loyal subscriber like everybody else should be. So keep up the good work.
Oh, I appreciate that, Tom. I mean, it was God, those 4.5, 5 years, whatever it was, it just was humbling to work with you and Bob every day and Lori Nickel to just see how you guys do it and the experience you have and just the ferocity, the tenacity, and like the thoroughness of how you cover a team. It's kind of lost, not to get in the weeds too far that direction, but I don't think you really see that on beats anymore. It's the I want to say a younger generation. It's like whatever you're tweeting and memeing and jiffing, and you just got to sound cool on Twitter and pander here and there, and you're set up pretty good on a lot of beats. But that was never you, never Bob, and you guys to show me how it's done. It was I'm forever indebted. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, we were old school newspaper guys, and I think I've transitioned a little better than Bob did to the online social media thing. But it still comes down to telling the story and you know finding out things that really are happening behind the scenes and not just giving you the whitewashed version of everything. And the one thing the um that's kind of changed in newspapers and online is that there seems to be more um, possibility for analysis. And that's kind of something that, I've been able to do more of, and I really enjoy that. The football aspect of it. I like writing about all the behind the scenes business part of it too, but just being able to kind of use your knowledge, your experience, all the things you've seen. Um, I haven't even figured out how many games I've covered, but you start to see things over and over again, and it's kind of ingrained, and you're able to do analysis on it.
You did that. I want to say you pioneered a lot of that though for all the beat coverage on any team with the chats, like the in-game chats with fans. I mean, really, you started doing that what year, Tom?
Well, what's funny is Greg Bedard actually started that, and then Cliff Crystal, the legendary Cliff Crystal in this market, started it, and then Greg kind of grew it, and then I took it over and just kind of connected with people, and it just became something that we really it just kind of blossomed. It became as the social media and online arena opened more, it became pretty big. Um, it's different. If I could show you what it was like to do, like I think someone should come and spend well, it would be 3 hours of 3.5, 4 hours of live block. You'd be shocked to see what it's really like, because some of the comments are just off the wall. Um, it's it's fun, you get to banter, but you just have to walk people off ledges. You have to keep them from consistently wanting to fire people. And it's so funny because I consider myself to be kind of cranky and sort of critical, hypercritical, but I end up being the one who's like defending the Packers because these people are like just irate whenever something bad happens. You really get a sense of what the fan perspective is, and I try to I try to change that. I want them to look at it more analytically, and so I try to do that.
I would pop in there. I want to say like at the end of the quarters in halftime, maybe. And you're right. It is like its own world. It's like almost back in the day when we were on AOL Instant Messenger, right before you could text your friends, and it was like this alternate universe of just you became this other person the way you message with your friends. It's like that, but with Packer fans. Just one, everybody fired, everybody to die, everything to change in the middle of
Yeah.
a game, and then the game could turn, and then everything would be happy at the end. But
Oh, yeah. The very first drive, the Packers give up a touchdown, and it's like, what is this? The Tom Capers defense? A same thing every year. We suck on defense, and you're like, it's the first drive of the game, man. I mean, just count on, okay?
you should just for fun go the other direction, be like, yeah, this is awful. Like you should really just
Yeah, that's true. I could do that, and then they'd be all over me like, "Oh, you're so negative,"
right. You can't win.
You can't win, so you just got to be yourself. That's pretty much what you have to do. But there are nights I come home like after a night game, and I want to just like crawl into a hole and like never talk to anybody again because the it's just been so up and down, and people are frustrating, and it's but all in all, I have a lot of fun, and I have a lot of followers who are
Yeah.
regulars, and they're really fun. They know the rules, and they kind of police the blog. So it can be really a lot of fun, and I hope it's a good supplement for people who are watching it on TV and don't want to listen to the announcers.
Well, this is a good segue too for what we want to get into, Spoon. But like another way, I think you've just kind of changed the game and how the sport should be covered. I mean, you've done the X's and O's videos with LeRoy Butler for how many years?
Yeah, he asked me that the other day, and I was like, man, we started this pretty not too long after he retired, which was in
Right.
2001, or after 2001 season, and I would say by 2005, 2003, maybe we were doing it. Um, it kind of started when he was playing, and when they went to the Super Bowl in '96, he did like a daily diary with me. And it was really fun. I would just call him up. One time I went up to his room, him and Edgar Bennett, like I don't think the Packers, you know, they wouldn't have been too happy, but he's just like, yeah, come on up. And so I went up to his room and we did it there. And it's just been, he's just a really aware guy who understands the role of the media and how to use it. And he's the smartest player I ever covered. I mean, he is hands down. He just knew the game so well. And so when we go on the X's and O's, we pick a play. Usually I pick it. And then I ask him, okay, let's break this down. What happened? What's going on here? And it's really fun. Then he uses his knowledge and schools me, and I've learned a lot from him. So if people are wondering what we're talking about, it's a video we do every Tuesday during the season called X's and O's with LeRoy Butler. And we also do 5 questions where we just talk about the state of the team that week. And he's up on everything. It's not like he doesn't know the league. Like he watches games, he knows stats. I don't know how he does it, because all he does is promotional appearances all through the state. I mean, he's
Right.
like cooking, and he's got his Leap vodka,
Yeah.
like it's a big deal for him, and his brats, and the guy never stops. I don't know. He's got a great business going.
I don't know how he fits everything into 24 hours. Because as you know, Tom, like you could call Leroy up and he'll just drop everything and talk to you for an hour. Like I've
Yeah.
talked to him as he's going to the bank, as he's picking up his kids, and
Yeah.
And he's doing this simultaneously while he's breaking down like Shannon Sharp for my tight end book, or we're talking about the old days of the Packers in the 90s. His brain, it is operating at a different level. He is
Yeah.
unbelievably bright.
Yeah, I've talked to him more times in the drive-through, where he's been in the drive-through than probably any other place. And
Yeah,
you know, we talk a lot, and he goes through the drive-throughs a lot.
he does.
So, but it's always funny. Like he'll have his daughter back in the day when his daughters were younger. He'd have them in the back, and you could just hear them, and he's like, you know, shooting the bull with them, and then hang on a second, and then we'll get back on with them. So, but yeah, he I don't know how he does it, and he's like nice to everybody. That's the part that blows me away, because I'm like, I can be nice for like 3 minutes and then I get bored, and I don't bored with people, and he's just like nice all the time.
I think it's kind of what he's been through, right? I mean, he's in a wheelchair. He doesn't know if he's going to walk again. He's growing up in just this dark, dark pocket of Jacksonville. All that stuff kind of mixed together, right? Where he's just got this perspective, and he gets to the Hall of Fame. You were there in Canton to see his induction speech. What was that like, and just how overdue was this for LeRoy Butler?
Well, yeah, it was really fun. It was he this meant so much to him. I think it validated his career for him. And while he was, if you think about it, he was voted by the Hall of Fame panel as the safety of the 1990s. So, they picked him over Darren Woodson and Merton Hanks. And, there were a lot of good safeties, John Lynch back then. And all those guys made it ahead of him, and I think there was something, I think that really hurt him. And he, everything just worked out perfectly this year, because the class wasn't that strong. They had just gotten in John Lynch, and he was way better player than John Lynch.
Oh,
Nobody would deny that, I don't think.
John Lynch is on
And
TV a
so,
lot, and he's the GM of a team, Spoon. So
yeah,
he's front and center.
but anybody who ever saw him play knew he couldn't cover anybody. He could hit. He's great. But anyway, uh, I think that it just fell into place. There's some guys it doesn't fall into place. It's like the best year they might have for it. There's like five other guys who are so good that you can't get in. You just can't get in. And it just happened to be that this was a year where the number of guys that were just slam dunks weren't as high. So he got in, and I think it's well deserved.
So for people who might be a little younger that don't remember like his impact on the Packers, that defense, how he was able to cover on the back end, yet play near the line of scrimmage and blitz, and how did he just kind of revolutionize that safety position, and what did he mean to uh, those Packers teams? I mean, that was the team that was a renaissance team. I mean, that team was dead for 3 decades, and he was part of waking it up.
Yeah. So he came in, and they started him out as a corner, and he was playing corner under Hank Bulla his first 2, 3 years. And then Ray Rhodes came in, and Ray Rhodes recognized right away that this guy could be um, a tool that he could use in all different kind of ways. And he especially liked him as a blitzer. He felt like bringing him down into the box, he was really he if you didn't blitz him, he could recover and cover a tight end. He was a legit 4-4 guy. He never looked like it, and I mean, he's still a little bit pigeon-toed, and that's what had gotten him in those braces. But he was a legit 4-4 guy, in the height of his career. And so he could run with any tight end. He could run with backs. He was a superb tackler. You know, he was just if you were teaching how to tackle, you would watch him. You know, he just broke down, knew um, when to fire at a guy's legs. You know, he knew exactly the distance you had to be before you took your shot at a guy. He knew in coverage when to look for the ball. You know, he studied the receivers and knew when the ball was coming based on where they were. He knew how close he needed to be when he was running with the guy, or where, you know, how far away. He knew. He says this all the time. You know, deep to short, deep to short. You know, like never give up anything over your head, and he didn't. And he always was very disciplined in that way. But really, the blitzing is what separated him. Ray Rhodes got him started on that, and then Fritz Schirmer took it to another level. Well, the defense got better, you know, with Reggie White and Sean Jones and Santana Dotson and Gilbert Brown. That front four was tough to deal with. And then all of a sudden you got Butler, and he would blitz from the weak side, which nobody did back then. And you know, you go back and look at some of the playoff games against the 49ers, and he would sack Steve Young from behind because they just didn't, for whatever reason, they you know, didn't think weak side blitzes worked. So he would just come really fast and get guys. So yeah, he was a different kind of player. I'm not sure, you know, you think about a guy like the guy in San Diego, or with the Chargers, Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Derwin
No,
James, maybe.
yeah, Derwin James. Denzel Ward's the corner in Cleveland. Derwin James, you know, he's that kind of a guy.
Yeah.
But Butler also, you know, he was healthy all the time. He was just, then he was a leader, and you just don't see too many guys like that anymore at safety.
That Super Bowl loss to the Broncos kind of tells you everything you need to know about LeRoy, too, right? I mean, Mike Shanahan prioritizes Butler, you know, not Reggie White, Butler
Yeah,
to neutralize that defense. And it worked. And it took a while for Green Bay to kind of figure out what they were doing, you know, using Shannon Sharp as a decoy, all that stuff. But yeah, good to see him finally get his due, long overdue. The Packers today, boy, I don't know what we dig into, Tom, for a little bit, but it's a team that lost Devontae Adams, that is trying to win with defense. You don't really see that often in Wisconsin. I'm thinking back to training camps and covering it with you guys, and the ball's just moving up and down the field, all these receivers. It's fun, it's explosive, and I'd imagine a training camp practice this summer just looks different. The defense, I'm guessing, is by all reports dominating, and
they
I
are.
you to that's needed. Like in January, that's how you have to win. They needed this transformation to try to win a different way, because what they've been trying for a decade hasn't been working.
Right. It's, you know, and you look at it in reality, the last couple of Super Bowls, you know, it always seems to shift. Like teams, you know, who are high powered offenses all of a sudden win a couple of Super Bowls in a row. Well, New England just wins, but you know, it's something like that, you know, like Doug Peterson's Eagles, you know, they're all innovative with all motion and all kinds of stuff. And, you know,
RPOs.
Andy Reid, yeah, and Andy Reid with, you know, all his offensive magic and stuff. But then, you know, now you see like the Rams winning with, you know, Matthew Stafford, and Tampa Bay winning with that defense, which is phenomenal, and the 49ers winning with defense, you know, and all of a sudden it's like defense and special teams are sort of what the answer is right now, because you got so many good quarterbacks. You've got to figure out a way. Every team can move the ball up the field. So who can stop them, though? You
Right.
know, and that's always been Green Bay's problem. They couldn't stop them, and they're never they always short shrifted special teams. You know, it was just a weakness of Ted Thompson when he was GM, because I often think that he just couldn't get over the model that he was a special teams player who was a nobody. And so he just wanted a bunch of nobodies, you know, draft picks to play special teams, and thought they could do that. But the Packers notoriously never paid for special teams coaches. They blew it. They had a chance to get Darren Rizzi, who was probably the best special teams coach in the NFL, and they lowballed him, and he laughed at him. I mean, he was ready to come up and work with LaFleur his first year. And so finally, you know, they realized their mistake after special teams killed them in the playoffs last year and they got a punt block. They hired Rich Bisaccia, for probably made him the highest paid special teams coach in the NFL. And now, and then Gutekunst surprises everybody and takes two guys from Georgia, two defensive players from Georgia in the first round. And, you know, that's not what people expected. You know, he didn't take a receiver in the first round. Well, that's the Packers' history. They never take receivers in the first round. But he built on that defense, and I think that was a smart move. Their defense looks really good. They've got depth in the secondary. They've got two guys. They've built themselves to be like that Tampa Bay, like the old San Francisco defense, where you never had to come out of nickel. You had the two inside linebackers, and they just dropped back, and could run like nobody's business. And anything that was thrown in front of them, they just crashed down. And I think they've built that. And their pass rush is pretty good. Rashawn Gary's kind of turning into a legitimate pass rusher. So they've got depth, and they've got speed, and they got some talent. Now, you know, offensively, they got a lot of question marks. You know, they don't have Devontae Adams, and you don't replace that with one guy. You're going to have to figure out a way to replace him. And this, to me, this is the key to the whole season. They've got two really good running backs, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and two different style of running backs. They have to count those guys as their offensive weapons, as opposed to all these wide receivers, and use them. So it's going to be incumbent on Aaron Rodgers not to change the play every single time they come up, you know, to change from run plays to pass plays. He's going to have to stick with some run plays because their running backs are pretty good.
Right. There's two playbooks in town. I mean, there's Matt LaFleur's, and then there's Aaron Rodgers's, and it's not a slight, right? Obviously, the things that he's changed to have worked because he's got Devontae Adams out there. They played together 8 years. They're seeing the same thing. They've got that telepathic connection, but that's gone. So is he going to stick with those run calls that come in? Because Matt LaFleur is probably thinking chess, right? This is going to lead to that, to this today. He's trying to set stuff up through the course of a game. Is the quarterback going to buy in?
Yeah, well, now all of a sudden, Andy, you assume you're going to have a better special teams unit. So now field position is a factor. You know, the old special teams coach made a great point last year, which is when you got these great quarterbacks like Rodgers and Favre, you know, special teams gets devalued because generally they're moving the ball. They're going to move the ball somehow. They may not score every time, but they're going to get across the 50, and, you know, coverage and stuff. It's different. You know, you're not playing the field position game where, okay, you're putting them deep into their territory, expecting your defense to play really well, and then you get the ball back at the 50. Right. You know, instead you're like, well, we're on the 30 and it's 3rd and 10. Let's take a shot downfield, you know, because that's just what we do. And it's going to be different. And it'll be interesting to see if he can play that style, especially in the playoffs. I think that's where we won't really know about that until they get to the playoffs, assuming they make the playoffs. You know, that's to me when all that stuff really counts is, can you get a first down? Can you get field position in your advantage instead of having to go, 3 and out and it's, or get to 3rd and 10 and you have to go downfield. So I think that'll be a really interesting thing to watch.
Such a fantastic breakdown. You can see it in the playoffs. There's going to be that thought process of you wanting to press, wanting to make a play, wanting to be that 4-time MVP, and we'll see. I say the same thing here in Buffalo with the coaching. Like, we can't really judge the Bills until they get into January. And is Sean McDermott going to take the chip shot field goals again? Is he going to melt down with 13 seconds again? How does he kind of respond to that moment that's been difficult for him? Well, we'll find out with Aaron Rodgers here in January. He'll be there
Well,
again.
yeah, and you can't say, it's hard to say that any game comes down to one play, but when you've got the MVP of the league and there's a play to be made, you expect it to be made. So, the last 2 years, they get down to inside the 10-yard line and they got 3 tries and they can't score. And LaFleur ends up kicking the field goal, which he probably shouldn't have, but at the time I didn't have that much of a problem with it. Then last year, you got this, I believe it was 3rd and 10, and Rodgers throws to Devontae Adams deep. He's double covered, and Alan Lazard is cutting across the middle of the field wide open, nobody covering him. And he might have taken it all the way, or he'd have gotten down to where they could have scored and probably won the game. So, your superstar players have to make those plays. And the last 2 years, that hasn't happened. So this could be Rodgers' last shot. I sort of think it is. He may be able to. I believe he could play several years. Looking at him now in camp, he looks the same. So athletically, he's fine. His arm is still live. He can still move around. I don't think he's losing. He's not falling off the cliff. So he could play a number of years. The question is, how long will he play for the Packers, and how long can they afford him, and when do they decide they got to go, with someone else? So that, I think this is a year-to-year thing, and so I think everybody has to treat it like it's his last year.
$150 million for 1 year. I mean, you want to talk about Super Bowl or bust. Whew. It's a
Could
lot of money
be.
if he retired.
Yeah, well, the way this thing is structured, it's to me, it's a 1-year deal or it's a 3-year deal. If they commit to him to next year, his salary cap numbers go so high that you almost have to keep him the 3rd year, because if everything accelerates, it's just his cap number is going to be like $70 million. So that's why I kind of think they have to make a decision this year.
Yeah.
Are they going to keep him for 2 more years, or are they going to just move on? So that's why I kind of look at it as a 1-year deal.
Well, before we lose you, Tom, thanks for hanging out way longer than I told you we could talk here. So you probably got live chats to get to and lawns to cut and preseason. The receivers, God, I mean, who just pops to you? Obviously, it's the summer of Romeo, right? That's all we've been seeing and reading. But is the hype justified? Is there another guy that we should be talking about a little bit more? Who out of that pack has looked good to you at training camp?
Yeah, so Dobbs has stood out, and he's a big receiver. I wouldn't say he's MVS. He doesn't have that kind of speed, but he's sort of that big, tall receiver who can do more than just run straight down the field. He really is good off the line of scrimmage. He's got really good hands. decent speed. He's just, it's just, everything's going to be a learning process for him. And, we've seen it. I did I went back and looked at how many 1,000-yard rookie receivers there've been, and it's not many. It's like, I think it was like 11 in the last 15 years or something like that. And Jamar Chase is the exception to the rule. And he's was the number 6 pick or whatever. And Dubs is a 4th round pick. So you can't expect him to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I think he can be part of the solution. I think the guy that could have a big bearing on their season is Amari Rodgers. I think that's a guy who they had a lot of hope for last year, and he was too heavy. He couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. He really struggled with confidence, and he's lost about 20 pounds, and he looks really good. He catches everything. He's a slot guy. He's a Randall Cobb type of player, but I think he might be a little better route runner than Cobb, and he's stockier and probably a little better after the catch. So that's a guy to watch. I think a lot depends on him this year because they don't really, Cobb is their slot, but he can't stay healthy, and he's getting old. I know they would like to get something out of Sammy Watkins, and him well, but he's been really slow to get going because, he didn't think he was even going to be playing this year. He was sitting at home like, okay, I guess I'm done, and eating a lot of Doritos or something. And so he's working his way back into shape. I'm not even sure, but we'll see. It's early. It's just one of those things where it could be like a Devin Funchess last year, where they thought they were getting a guy who could help them, and then they just decided, let's go with the young guys. But right now, that's all they got in terms of veterans. Alan Lazard's going to be their number 1 receiver, and he's a good player, but he's not going to make anybody forget about Devontae Adams. I think they'll have to pick. They'll be scouring the waiver wire for guys, the trade market, maybe even get in on Odell Beckham when he's healthy. They were in on him last year. They didn't want to pay him anything, but they could get back in on him again.
That's interesting that, after missing out on him last year, that could be maybe second time's the charm, and they just kind of.
Yeah, well, at the time they had Devontae Adams, so why would you pay a huge amount of money for him? And you didn't know exactly how he was going to be, what he was going to be like in the locker room. And so they offered him the minimum, and he got an incentive-laden deal with the Rams and took it. So will he hold that against them this year? Maybe, but I think it all depends on how the season goes.
I don't care what Aaron Rodgers says. Green Bay, Wisconsin's a good place to live too. Give me those curds, and Miller Lite's basically currency out there. You can hang out with Kyle Cousineau down at Fox Harbor. What's that?
You're a total Green Bay guy.
There was a moment there, honestly. I remember, we probably talked about it, where even though I'm from Western New York and that magnetic pull was always kind of there, it's like I started looking at places, townhomes, houses to buy. I was like, I could see myself here long term. It's an amazing place to live. The people are just phenomenal. You can just walk into a bar and make 10 new friends. So yeah, I don't know why Odell wouldn't want to sign there. Yeah, it's a great place to live.
Yeah, well, some of us who've grown up in major metropolitan cities aren't as enamored with it as you are.
Yeah, my driveway was a mile long, and we had no neighbors, and grew up in the woods. So maybe that's it, Tom. That probably is it.
Yeah, but you're right. It is a pleasant place. People are nice. People are Wisconsin friendly, and it's cheap. It's cheap to live there. You can buy a lot of house in Green Bay. you know,
My
especially
rent
if
was
you're,
$750 for a 2-bedroom right on the in downtown on the river. It's
yeah,
pretty
right
nice.
on the river. Yep.
Oh
So
man, the good old days, being in your mid 20s and having that bounce back ability. You could just there's no such thing as a hangover back then downtown Green Bay, Tom.
I
It's
don't even remember that time in my life so long ago.
well, thanks so much for hanging spoon. It's awesome to see you. Just unreal insight as always. So PackersNews.com at Tom Silverstein. Anything up right now that people should look for and read?
If they want to try the live blog, it is free. You can get on our website on JS Online or PackersNews.com. And I'll be doing it tonight when they play the 49ers, if you want to check it out. There'll be a link. You'll see it there in the Packers section. And it's a lot of fun. So, come along and join that. We got a podcast too. And then I'll be doing the Butler stuff come the first week of the regular season.
Awesome. We'll be checking it all out, and it's great to see you, man. I don't know what took us so long. Shame on me for waiting this long to get you on the pod, and got to get out there and hang out in the flesh. Miss hanging out. It's a good
Yeah,
times.
well, I'll maybe see you in a couple of months, right? Packers are out in Buffalo this year.
Let's do it. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And next podcast, we have to talk about the time we almost died in Chicago.
Oh God, don't bring that up.
Maybe not. Maybe not. It was
Yeah,
the
no,
trauma's
that
real.
yeah, I've tried to forget that, but yeah, every time I'm
Oh
driving
man.
down the short drive, it does come up. Yeah.
I'll never forget sitting in that back seat and seeing that truck coming like a bat out of hell. As I mean, really, it's
No, oh,
even though you were going into that lane, he came out of nowhere. He was going like 100 miles an hour. And
yeah, and it was snowing, and
that's
the
right.
back window was full of snow, and yeah, I don't even want to think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, seriously,
No,
that
that's
bright.
okay.
I remember turning and thinking that we were going to get in a huge crash and turning and bracing like that and like seeing my life flash before my eyes. And thank God, Tom, you're driving that rental car and you swerved at the last split second, right? And we lived.
I don't even remember if it's a
Whew.
flash. Yeah. So,
Oh man,
yep.
I got my heart's racing all over
I
again.
know. I know. I've been through a couple planes, trains, and automobiles. Once Bedard and I were flying, and our plane supposedly started on fire, and the captain comes on and says, well, we're getting a signal here that our wing is on fire, so we're going to make an emergency landing. I don't think it is on fire, but we're getting that signal. So we landed with all these fire trucks and stuff. That was crazy too.
We should make that a new segment then. We'll just just I mean, you probably have enough
Travel,
stories to share.
yeah, plenty of them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much,
Anyway,
Tom, and
yeah.
thanks everybody for listening.